Hi, everybody. Thanks for being here today. I was seeing in the chat that folks are tuning in from all over. A lot of you from California, where it is smoky and apocalyptic, and there is no one I would rather ride out an apocalypse with than a group of stunt women. I feel completely safe and prepared for anything. So let me introduce our panelists today. The director of the film, April Wright, and three of the sort of extraordinary athletes and performers in the film, Debbie Evans, Alyma Dorsey, and Michelle Jubilee Gonzalez. Just want to welcome you guys and tell you what a fun movie this was for me. I learned a lot, but I also enjoyed just watching the stunts as kind of an audience member. And I was realizing that when you're a kid growing up and deciding what you want to do for a living, you see a firefighter, you say, I want to be a firefighter. You see a doctor, you say, I want to be a doctor. Stunt performers are, when they're doing their jobs right, often invisible. So what was it for each of you that made you say, oh, that's a job and that's something I could do and would like to do? Alyma, what was it? What was the first time you figured out that was a gig?
You know, it's kind of crazy because I was on the set with Quentin Tarantino, this was before I was even doing stunts, and I was playing beach volleyball, and he was one of my sponsors, as well as I trained him as well, like physically trained him. And I remember that year in 2012, he's like, Alyma, why don't you come with me to Louisiana while I film Django? And you can just, take care of me, watch over me, make sure I'm eating okay. And I said, okay, no problem. It was the off season for volleyball anyway. So I went, and as I'm looking at all the stunt people perform, I'm thinking, I could do this. Like, I really can do this. So maybe 4 months into it, I went up to him on set, and I was like, Q, I could do this. This is something that I could do. And he looked at me, he goes, yes, you can, honey. And then he actually introduced me to the stunt coordinator, who was Jeff Dashnaw at the time. And I started training with the stunt team. And literally 2 months later, I booked my first stunt gig. So it was really that interim of sitting on set, watching everyone perform, watching set etiquette, watching how just how the performers interacted with the other actors and just with the cast versus also what they had to do on set. And I knew that that was something that I pretty much had been preparing for all my life. I mean, all those things I saw them do, that was something that I do for fun. Mm-hmm. So I knew that it was something that I could do. And he actually gave me the opportunity to do it. That being said, a lot of people look at stunts and think that they can do it. It's not until you actually go through the motion and do the stunts that you really realize if you can do it or not. Because hitting the ground one time is great. Hitting the ground 30 times in a row is a whole other animal. So, I mean, I think anyone can look at action and think that they can do it, but not everyone can do it. That's the biggest thing.
Debbie, what about for you? What was the moment when you realized that this was a career and it was one you'd be great at?
Well, I was signed up for my second year of junior college, and it was summertime, and I happened to see a TV show where there was supposedly a girl on a motorcycle, and her head was this big and her neck was this big, shoulders huge. And I knew it was a guy, and I'm going, I could do that. And I checked around with a few people that I knew. And back then you either had to have a Screen Actors Guild card, or you had to have somebody who was in the business who could get you that Screen Actors Guild card. And I didn't have either. At the time, I was riding national championship motorcycle trials against the men and doing very well. And so I just finished riding the national championship. And then in September, the phone rang. And it was a stunt coordinator asking me if I wanted to work in a movie, riding motorcycles. And I pinched myself and went, wow, this is amazing. And so I went and tried out. And I had always been an athlete. So when I got the job, I worked with a lot of really amazing stuntmen and stunt performers. And I got to watch how everything was done as safely as possible. And it wasn't about being a daredevil and, you know, and just going for it. Everything was broken down and it made sense practically for me. And, you know, I said, I've been training for this my whole life and didn't know it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I got in through that, and I haven't looked back since. I don't think I even withdrew from my college classes.
Michelle, what about you? How did you know this was the gig for you?
You know, it's really interesting because for me, I was very much raised on watching Jackie Chan and Bruce Lee and Samuel Law, like all these amazing guys kicking butt, doing flips, doing martial arts, and acting. I was like, I want to do that, but like as me, as a female. But I always identified with the storytelling of action, and I was very into gymnastics and martial arts, and I just, you know, I basically trained all these things as a kid. And it wasn't until I was like fresh out of college that my sister was like, you'd be a great stunt woman because like you've been doing this your whole life. I'm like, that's a really, what do I do? And she was like, well, you have to be in the right city. Because like Miami, which is my hometown, it's a work for hire state in Florida. So, you know, I did a couple little like short films, little things there. And then I made the big leap to Los Angeles, where I got with a sports specialty agency. And then they referred me to Bob's Backyard. And I started training with a bunch of stunt people and making friends with people. And they're like, oh, you're the new girl in town. And then they saw that I had all these skills of martial arts and gymnastics. And that was kind of my end. So like, I think I always knew basically that I wanted to tell stories with action because I just loved watching that as a kid. And then I literally aspired to be that. So pretty early on I knew.
April, how did you decide that the subject matter warranted a movie?
Well, I was just going to say one thing. As much that we were able to pack into the movie, I love hearing these women talk, and you kind of get a sense of how much we also recorded that didn't make it into the film. I could have made 4 films with all the great stories and everything that they told. So I love hearing this extra stuff. It started as a book. There was a book called Stuntwomen, the Untold Hollywood Story by a woman named Molly Gregory, who had written a few different cinema, history topics. And producer Marion Rosenberg, who I actually see is out there watching, she had optioned the book and was partnered with a couple other producers. And I had made a couple other documentaries about cinema history, one about drive-in movie theaters, one about movie palaces. And so I had a little bit of experience, especially using clips and all those kinds of things. But I knew for Stuntwomen that we didn't want it to be just the history. We wanted to bring the book to life. And so I had the idea of following younger stuntwomen as they meet some of the living legends that are still alive and hearing, what was in the book, but hearing it directly and more stories that they, had on camera that we hadn't even heard before. And then also bringing it to the present day, because the book went up to, I think, around 2007, and we really needed to bring it into the present. So I just thought, we have to show this visually. We have to put action into the film and just, make it as visual and as cool and as fun as possible while the history and the messages are tucked away in there.
One of the things that I learned from this movie that I had never thought about before is how for stunt women, obviously you have all of the important tricks of the craft that you have to learn. And then you have this other thing you have to deal with, which is that your male counterparts are doubling for an actor who's wearing long sleeves and jeans and therefore can pad, whereas you might be wearing a mini skirt and high heels. You might have to be doubling for an actress who is physically quite small, which brings its own sort of, how are you a powerful athlete who can do what you do, and also matching for a very physically small person. And I'm curious, any one of the three of you feel free to jump in. What are the things that you think are unique to being a woman in the stunt industry that most people don't know or would be surprised by?
I think
Who's gonna get there first?
I think it's the nail on the head is just the fact that we can't wear as many pads as the men do, and the fact that we're doing a lot of our stunts in high heels. And I remember showing up one day to a set, and they're like, "Oh yeah, you're naked." I'm like, "Oh, okay, great. Thanks for telling me. You know what I mean? It's like, but the guy was naked too. So, but we were, but it's just one of those things where, as I think as being a woman, it's no different to me in life than what I normally deal with. So the fact that we can't wear pads because of a scene it doesn't really make or break anything for me. I'm kind of used to it. It's like, okay, I'm a woman. We're falling down the stairs in a lingerie. Well, we can't show elbows and knees, so we just have to buck up and try to do it, which makes me feel like female stunt performers are way more stronger than male stunt performers because of the fact of what we actually have to do and the fact that we don't get a chance to wear pads as much as they used to, as much as the guys do. However, when I think about the older generation, which I call BP, before pads, they didn't even wear pads in the beginning. So like, who am I to complain when back in the day they didn't have pads anyway? So for me, it's just part of the territory. I can't complain when they didn't used to wear pads. So it's a luxury for us, I feel.
Well, I feel like it's not right that women don't get paid more when you don't wear as much and you can't put the pads on. When I started, the pads were big and bulky, and I searched far and wide to try and find pads that I could shave down so they wouldn't be seen. And I was very, athletic and muscular, like you were saying, and it was always a battle of having to regulate diet and working out and not working out too much and becoming too bulky. But it's a balancing act that we all have to do. And it's a little better now because they are accepting that there are different size people. And they didn't accept that back then.
Yeah.
You had to be a rail. And, it's tough mentally to constantly be dealing with that. Now we have the nice little thin pads and everything. I came up with the idea a long time ago of using a pair of tights, flesh-colored tights, and I would put them over my pads. So if the material tore or my sleeve went up or whatever, they wouldn't see a bright green pad or bright yellow pad. It would be flesh-colored. And but now they have so many more options on the low-profile pads. It's amazing.
I can jump in on this topic too. There was something we shot that didn't make it into the documentary with Cheryl Lewis. We went with her to her sports medicine chiropractor person, who a lot of stunt people have regimens that they go through to keep their bodies in shape. And if they've done a lot of work, and he said he works on all types of athletes, a lot of professional athletes. And what he told us, he thought stunt women were most closely athletically to football players. But he said football players, they're getting the hard hits once a week on Sunday. The stunt women are not wearing pads and they're getting hits every day over and over and over again. And so physically, when he's working and helping, repair bodies, he felt like that was the closest parallel, which I thought was super interesting.
Wow. Yeah.
That's a really good point. I think as female performers, there's definitely a different toughness and grit that we simply have to come already with that in our, forget putting in the stunt bag, like that has to be in our system mentally. Like our perspective and our approach to dealing with stunts requires just so much more grit, because we're more exposed. We're wearing, high heels, mini skirts, naked, lingerie. I can't tell you how many times I've done like in a negligee, I had to get a full tackle down to the ground. The most they put was like this really low profile thing under a rug just to kind of hide it. But I'm still getting tackled. We're still hitting the ground like with full force. So it's like, I think it's a great suggestion that for once in life, women get paid more than men when it comes to certain stunts. Because it's just, inevitably we'll be wearing spandex. Like that's just, she has super tight pants on, not the regular jeans the guys are wearing, or we have our arms exposed instead of leather jackets. So it's definitely, we have to be a little bit smarter when it comes to like strategically figuring out what's the safest way to hit whatever it is we're hitting, whether it's wall or a table or the ground, and figuring out what muscle do we have to like try and aim with, because the muscle becomes your padding when you don't have pads. you know. So even for keeping our sizes as small as we can, having to double certain actresses, there's a lot of, I think, more strategy involved with like, how do we survive the day and then do it again tomorrow? So
yeah, I got hit by a car in high heels and short shorts, doubling a hooker in downtown LA. Plus, you think about the ground there and how filthy that is. It's just like, ew, yuck.
Yeah, and you know, and that being said, I'm always in therapy. Like, because of that, I have a huge team of people that I have to go to for chiropractic care, acupuncture, therapy. I mean, I almost feel like I'm a professional athlete again, because everything that a professional athlete has as far as like preventative care and recovery, I have to go through on a daily basis, because we don't get a chance to wear as many pads as we would like to. So, you know, that goes along with the territory for sure. And like Michelle says, it's a mindset. Like, we have to already be ready and have that grit in us, because we already know that we're going to hit the ground, and more than likely we can't have on as many pads as the guys have on. So.
Yeah, something that's interesting is I once had to do a huge stair fall, and they shot the aftermath first. So of course, you know, so she's laying at the bottom of the stairs, and I'm up there trying to do this, you know, thinking about how I'm going to get to that particular spot. And so I'm just in my head, you know, just picturing where she was and how she had her arm and how she had her leg. And somehow I did the whole stair fall. And when I landed, I went, I feel like I'm in the same spot. And then I was exactly in the same spot.
Wow.
But you would think they would shoot the stair fall first and then match the actress to that. But, you know, there's these little nuances of things that are huge. Absolutely. That we have to deal with on a daily basis.
Yeah, and the weight thing is a huge deal, especially because, like, right now I've doubled like 42 different actresses, and all of them look different. You know, so there's been times where I've had to wear like muscle pads. There's been times where I've had to get really, really tiny. So aside from just the stunt training, just the, you know, learning how to eat right, learning how to be able to put on weight and take off weight in a very fast amount of time is really one of the things as a female that we really have to deal with. At least I do. I'm a big girl, so I'm always having to either cut weight, put on weight, shift my body within a short time frame. So yeah, we definitely have a lot of challenges for sure.
Yeah, that's very difficult. And I had on Terminator 2, I doubled Linda Hamilton and Sarah Connor. And so she had a trainer for like 3 months who would come to her house, feed her food, do everything with her, get her to run, do all the exercise. The coordinator calls me about 4 weeks before the movie starts and says, "Hey, Deb, Linda's buff. You got to get really buff." And I'm going, okay, where's my trainer? I did it, but, you know, it's not easy. They just don't give us the same that they give the
prep, the same heads up, the same treatment. It's definitely, we have so many more elements to have to figure out. And again, it's like the strategy of like, well, I have to train my skills, and then I also have to prepare my meals so I can be counting the calories, whether it's to put on more muscle and to get really, really lean, or if I have to like, you know, be keto diet, fasting this, but then having the right meal to break. Like, there's this whole science before you even get to training the skills for the day that you need for that, whatever it is, you know? So it's just so much, and it does come with such little notice that I do feel like it's a lot more stress that gets put on our plate more often than to our wonderful male counterparts, bless their hearts. But they're generally, your body type is your body type. You can live in the 185 range for like years without having to fluctuate too much, you know?
Absolutely. That's almost why I feel like it's almost like being a professional athlete, because when I was playing volleyball, it was exactly the same thing. I mean, we're training all day long. Not necessarily training just for our skill, but our mindset, our body, our physicality. Like, I have about 3 or 4 training sessions a day outside of just working on my weight. Now I got to work on my strength. Now I got to work on my fast twitch muscle fiber. Now I have to get to the stunt that I have to work on. Oh yeah, I don't know how to do that. Let's learn that. So it's it's a long process, I feel, but it's very rewarding, definitely.
I'm super interested in the mental aspects of what you guys do. You're sort of going against a body's natural reflex toward fear or to, avoid pain. And I wonder how you do it. I mean, is it about, focusing on the actual physical action that you're doing, or are there ways that you psych yourself up for something that for a regular person, they'd say, yeah, no.
Yeah, I break things down. It's kind of like a puzzle to me, and I love solving the puzzle and getting everything together and breaking it down to those little bits where you can actually see the whole thing through. So, I call it training my brain. Mm-hmm. So what I'll do is I'll visualize what I need to do. And if I can't see it going from start to finish, then I know there's a glitch and I need to go back and rework it and maybe change something to where it fits me better. It's so funny because I had to do this thing over a railing, a high fall over a railing in a stairwell. And I had 6 guys coming up to me and telling me how to do the stunt. And I looked at them. One was 6'1", the other one was, 6 foot, and the other one was, they were all different sizes, but none of them were my size. And the mass in their body is their upper body, where mine is my hips. Mm-hmm. And so I just listened to what they had to say and tried to figure out, okay, did they have anything in there that would help me? And then I had to think, okay, with my body type and how high the rail is, what I need to do. And so, I did what was good for me because I knew I was different than them and it wasn't going to be the same thing. And then afterwards, I went up and thanked them all because they were trying to help me. And so instead of getting angry that they didn't understand that my body was different than theirs and all that, they cared enough to try and help me. So that's how I dealt with a lot of the going through things, because it's always good to listen to the advice that some of the guys give you and everything. Like, for instance, when I started doing car hits, I went with the guy that was 5'5". I'm 5'4". And he had this amazing way where you just lean into the car, you put your hand down, and the car, it makes your body go up and you're not mucking out your legs. And so I've done them that way ever since. And I've done multiple car hits and everything's gone really well. But you can always learn from people, and they might not have anything that's there to help you, but a lot of them do. And you take those little tips and you fill your bag with them so that next time you go do something, you remember that. And then you share it with other people so that they can be safer and that, they can maybe use something that you've learned.
What about you, Alyma or Michelle? Do you have a sort of technique, a mental technique that you use when you're going to do a stunt that you're, going to be sort of pushing through some fear or some anxiety?
Go ahead, Michelle.
I was just going to second what Debbie said with like visualizing the whole stunt from beginning to end, like walking through the puzzle of like, if I go at this angle, if I go at this speed, if I need to bail, why would I need to bail? Like kind of anticipating, working out all the kinks of the stunt, so to speak, because I think visualization is such a huge part of getting through that mental wall or mental block, if you want to call it that, the block of fear. Because fear is your friend. Like it's there to help you survive and protect yourself. But when it comes to jumping into the fire, like it's also understanding the element. Like the fire itself is not going to hurt you unless you sit there and let yourself cook. But if you move with it, if you learn how to dance with that element, if you learn how to dance with speed or impact or how, like it's a study. So I feel like the thing that helps me overcome that fear is truly the investigative mind, the curiosity of like, how does this element work? How does impact, how does the body take, how can you mentally get yourself tough enough to overcome these things. So it's for me the science of it, of like analyzing whatever gag it is and just going for it then, you know? Anyways, throwing you the ball, Alyma.
Okay. You know, my mental game is the strongest thing I got, just to be honest with you, because I started stunts much later than a lot of other people. I've only been doing it for about 8 years. So everything that I'm doing is all learned. It's a new learned skill. I didn't come in, you know, growing up doing martial arts or driving. So everything is learned. So for me, I have to A, break it down. B, I meet with someone and we start from ground zero as if I'm walking in that particular stunt, and I break every movement down. Once I break the movement down, I actually try to go through all the different nuances that the director or the coordinator might ask me for. So therefore, there's nothing that like kind of scares me. I'm like, oh, okay, I kind of practiced that. Once I'm able to break the movement down, then whatever they throw at me, I can then just like compartmentalize, put, okay, so I turn this, oh, I turned that way before, so I just turn that way this way. So I'm able to kind of like piece everything together. So for me, I'm always training. I'm always repping everything out, like as much as I can, because for me, repetition is your friend. And then I'm always, as I'm repping it out, thinking of the different things that could happen, and then I try them. I try that fall, I try that landing, I see how it feels on my body. And then I work with someone who's actually done the stunt before, so they can actually guide me through it. Especially if I have an injury, maybe I'm not able to do it exactly the right way. So how can I do it based off of the injury that I have? So for me, I have a strong mental game. Then I visualize it. Then at night, I visualize it. When I get there, I visualize it. And then my last thing I do is I pray. I pray, and I just have to say it. I pray. Like, I pray for strength and guidance and knowledge and everything, because that's what I got. Like, that's my foundation. So I have a whole thing that I go through, because this is all new things to me. So.
Amen with the prayer. I mean,
oh yeah. Yeah.
You know, it's big time, you know, because we're talking about life and death sometimes. The smallest little thing could cause a huge reaction that, you know, could take you out.
Absolutely.
And so, and a lot of times it's the little things that get you, because the big things we really prepare for.
Yep.
And so the little things sometimes people take for granted. And, you know, I just always talk about my big burly angels and how buff they are.
I got so many.
I keep them busy.
Wait, I got angels. I got different angels for different stunts. Hey. Okay, I need my driving angel. Where is it? Okay.
Yeah, but you know, you were talking about fear earlier. And if you don't have any fear, because a lot of times I'll do interviews and people will say, oh, you must be fearless. And I said, no. You learn to walk through the fear, and you learn to analyze everything. And fear is healthy, like Michelle said. You know, you have to have a healthy sense of fear. But what I've noticed about stunt people is that they're the type of people that when they're afraid, they don't freeze. Yeah. They go into action.
That's the difference.
And it, you know, if there's anything going on, like a car wreck for real or something, I just go into action. Now, afterwards, I'll shake and, you know, feel things like that. But during it, you know, we have that fight or flight where we are ready to go. And that adrenaline pump we get helps us to do those superhuman things and Absolutely. To really focus. I always say that when I hear rolling and action, everything just comes into here. Solid focus, hyper focus. And you just do unbelievable things that you wouldn't think you would be able to do.
Yeah.
Has any of you ever been in a situation on a set where you were being asked to do something that you felt was unsafe and you had to express that? And if so, how did you do it?
I've been asked to do certain things that I felt were unsafe, but what I like to do is, instead of saying, no, we can't do it, we just can't do it, I like to think, okay, how can I make this, what they're trying to get happen, and maybe change a little something? And I've done that over and over and over again, and it seems to work really well. Change a little nuance so that it works. And, there's certain things I won't do. I have 3 kids and now 2 grandkids. I'm not going to do the high falls. Too many people hit the edge of bags, and, it's not a good result. And so, I'm not a skydiver, but there's certain things that I will not do, but I let the coordinator know that up front.
Absolutely.
Like I don't like working with wild animals, because you're working with another brain, and unless you really know them, it's pretty difficult. So I've stayed away from that, because there's people that specialize in that.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I've never really turned down or didn't do a stunt because of fear, but I have had conversations with coordinators based off of my concerns. I'm very vocal. I've never been one to say that I can do something that I can't. And if I feel like something's off or then I go to the coordinator if I can. If I can't and they're about to say action, then I do what I think is the best as far as safety is concerned. I'd rather be safe and get another take for the coordinator to say, okay, yeah, that wasn't right, as opposed to doing something and going all out and hurting myself and then there aren't any more takes. So if I get the opportunity to say something to the coordinator that I feel is important, because like Debbie said, you do have some fear and you have to be able to push through that fear. But you also do know if something feels off, if something's not right, if you might need to take a step back. If I have the opportunity, I always speak to the coordinator up front, because sometimes they appreciate that and they can change or switch things around, or it's something that they might not have even seen. So they appreciate you speaking to them. But if it's something that I can get through and it might just be my fear and I really feel like I can do it, and it might look a little hairy, if I have to switch some things or turn a different way or land a different way so that I'm safe to be able to play again, that's what I'll do. Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah, I definitely think most of the time when I believe this is generally the majority of the times when we get called in for things, it's because the stunt coordinator has done their homework. They know what our skill sets are. Everything is within our realm of feasibility. If you don't do 80-foot falls, you're not a skydiver. They're not calling me to do skydiving. They're calling Hannah Betts. Like, she's skydiving queen, right? Like, that's like one of her top skills amongst many others, and she's super talented. But they're going to call you for things that they've either heard somebody recommended you for the job because of your skill set, or that you see that they see you have it on the resume. If on the day they decide to push it and go a little bit asking for more, you work through it, and if you really feel like it's unsafe, then you have the conversation instead of saying, no, it can't be done. You're like, well, how do we make it safe? How do we get the thing that you want for story and picture and all that, but so I can give it to you more than once instead of having to give it to you once and then go straight to the hospital, because I have work tomorrow, and if I go to the hospital, I can't go to work. So we got to figure these things out. So I think it really does come down to having the right approach to communicating, like, what is the issue and what's an option for a solution. Don't just pose a problem, offer a solution. Hey, absolutely, this is super risky. How do you guys feel about doing this or trying it like this, or like, at least for the first one? And if that doesn't work, then you dial it in. Especially for the big stuff, usually a lot more thought goes into it, because they know it's a big gag and it does come with a much higher risk. So a lot of times they're going to be intelligent. They're not just, the mindset towards stunts has evolved over the years, especially recently with the things that have been happening, the tragedies that have happened. Nobody's dispensable, and I think production and coordinators and producers, like, we're all trying to be much more aware of, like, we're making movies, but there's a human life on the line here. How do we make it safe and still get the shot? So it's really just a matter of, like, how do we communicate that and offer solutions so we can still make the day,
I want to play devil's advocate with that, though, Michelle, because sometimes coordinators will call you even though you've never done the stunt before. Mm-hmm. Like for me, like for Baywatch, I had never driven a boat before, but they knew that I was teachable. Mm-hmm. So that was a circumstance where they didn't really know my skill set. They were praying that I will get it, and I did get it. However, I was very vocal in the fact that I needed a safety person hidden in the boat just in case. I mean, this is my first time driving a boat.
But you had the look, the size, whatever they were looking. They're like, you learn the skill. And if you need an extra person, fine. But you gave full disclaimer. You were like, hey, full disclosure, I don't know, but I will learn if you need me to.
Absolutely. But I was also like strong enough to say, listen, can you please put someone down here just in case something happens? Because this is my first time driving a boat. They taught me how to drive over the weekend. And then for 3 weeks, they had me doing near misses, 360s, 180s with everyone in my boat, safety divers, propane lines.
Wait, you're a prime example of like, that's how you communicate. You know, you said you were very transparent with your skill set. You didn't go above and beyond. You didn't oversell your capabilities. And that's like the most dangerous thing I see happening with some of the younger, fresher people coming into the industry is like, they oversell their capabilities and they show up on the day and they realize it changes all the time, changes by the minute, you know? And so like you have to be transparent and you have to give full disclosure. And if you're learnable, if you're teachable, awesome. Then they know how to work with that, you know? Good thing you didn't say, yay, I got my license. Can I get my license this weekend? Like, that's crazy. Don't do that.
But, you know, to go back to your question, how do you approach the director? How do you approach the coordinator if it's something like that? I feel like the best stunt women and men are the best communicators. They're not afraid to speak up. They're not afraid to talk. They know when to be quiet, but they know when to speak. And they know how to speak, and they know how to do it with respect. And they know how to get their point across without freaking everyone out, you know, and also maintaining a sense of poise. Because you cannot know how to do something, but if you're teachable and they know that they can count on you and trust you, then as long as you stay calm and you go with your basic foundation of what you learn and you have someone that's patient with you, you can actually work it out. But it's just a matter of how you treat yourself, how you treat the stunt people around you, and how you speak to your coordinator. I feel like coordinators would love it if you're open with them and you communicate with them because they want to get home safe. They want you to look good and they want you to make them look good. So open communication to me is the best way to just relate any problem, situation, or anything that you're going through at that time. Absolutely.
And one more thing to add to
I totally
go ahead.
This is something that I teach people and have talked about over and over again. Don't set the bar higher than you can clear.
Yeah.
Set the bar lower so that you know that you can clear it. Because I've seen so many people come in and ruin their careers by, yes, they maybe are talented in some things or whatever, but they overtalk it and they oversell it. And then, you know, the guys are looking at you like you're up here when your skill level is actually down here, and you might hit here every once in a while, but you got to do that all the time. So it's really important to, you know, when I think that's one of the successes, you know, successful things that I've done in my career, my whole career, is just, I would tell them exactly how much experience I had.
Yes.
And I would set the bar a little bit lower than I knew I could clear. And so back when I started, they didn't want to let women do a lot of things. And so when I came in and I did better than their expectations, then they kept calling me back. And so, you know, I continually tell people that because it's so important. And a lot of people, younger people today, they've been told they can do no wrong. They can, you know, they're wonderful. Everything they do is okay. And, you know, but when you get on set, it's not. There are real consequences. And so you need to make sure that you're not overselling yourself. Otherwise, you could ruin your career completely.
There are some great questions in the chat, so I'm just going to transition to asking some of those. Here's one from Suzanne Kate who says, hi, and thank you. Has CGI been a detriment to your work or amount of work, or is it a benefit?
Well, in car work, it's a detriment in a lot of ways because there's a lot of things we can do for real. And then VisFX gets in and they want to do a car crash CGI. And it just doesn't come across, and it takes the audience out of the movie. You know, they're there are certain things that I believe CGI is good for, like removing cables, putting in a background that you can't get to, things like that. But when it comes to stunts, I always, when I go to the movies, I love a real stunt.
Yeah.
I don't want to watch something that's computer generated. And you lose your audience. I worked on Batman and Robin. Was that the one with Mr. Freeze, I think? Well, the one with Mr. Freeze. And it was so over the top with CGI that you didn't care about the characters.
Yeah.
And so I think that more of a balance is coming back. There are places now, like in the superhero movies and all that it makes more sense. But if you're trying to tell a story, you lose your audience a lot.
Absolutely. I haven't really liked CGI for a lot of the films that we've done, especially like in Ghostbusters. People don't really realize what a stunt-heavy show that was because they CGI'd it so much. But in a lot of the fight scenes, we had guys on stilts literally doing backflips over us as we're fighting. And you think it's all CGI, but they were really like talent. So I think CGI has kind of dumbed down some of our performances because they don't know that it's really us performing. They think it's, they made it all CGI. So, yeah.
We interviewed everybody about this when we were making the film. It didn't make it into the final cut. And what you guys are saying, kind of two things I realized that are important. One, everybody came to realize that if it's a fully CG character, people can sense that it's not a human being. And when they know it's not a real human being doing it, the sense of jeopardy that the audience feels, the tension, goes completely away. So you need real people performing these stunts so that the characters feel real to the audience because we can sense it. And then the second thing is that a lot of people don't realize, at first people thought, oh, it's going to replace, people, that everything's going to become CG. But actually, a lot of stunt performers are involved even before the CG, where they're on wires or green screen and they're doing the flips. They're doing the stuff like you're talking about. And we showed a couple of clips of the previs from Ghostbusters and sort of matched it to the real film. So there's a lot of stunt performers really in the front position where they're doing it physically, even if it's on wires or whatever they're doing. And then they're taking that and building all the CG world around it. So in some cases, it's kind of cool because the stunt people really come in first before anybody else and start to shape what those, action sequences look like, which is pretty cool. I enjoyed learning that.
Yeah, it's a pretty interesting hybrid at this point, how CGI is being used to enhance the stunts or the performance of the stunts, because you're adding many other layers, not only removing cables, but then enhancing the animation of it. Because some things just don't exist, like when you're being aliens or creatures or whatever, like, yeah, you're going to be in like, A Quiet Place 2, for example. We had one of our stunt performers who was in the suit with all the balls, the motion performance capture suit. And then they would bring the little disco ball so they could capture it and fully animate it. But he's the creature jumping through windows, smashing stuff, flipping this and wrecking, and that's the performer then enhanced with the animation of CGI and stuff. So it's like, really, I think what we're starting to see, there are times where it does pose a detriment to the performer's ability, like Debbie was saying with the cars and stuff. And there are other times where we see the opposite, where it does enhance the performance, because it would be so much more difficult to perform all that with a really heavy prosthetic suit of some weird creature. And you're like, how am I supposed to flip? This thing weighs a ton.
Yeah, but the thing about that is we know that, though. The thing about that is we know that, but the general public doesn't know that. So it takes some of the edge off. When they see the CGI, they think, oh, it's CGI. It's not real performers. A lot of them don't realize it is a lot of stunt people performing those, and the CGI is around it. But the general population doesn't know that.
That's the movie magic. That's like before people even knew that stunt performers existed. It was all, they thought the actors were doing all this stuff. And now they're like, oh, stunt performer. Oh, you're the person who makes that person look like they're like, whatever it is, right? And so it's like, this is the next layer. It's like, oh, you're the thing that makes the stunt performers look like creatures or whatever it is, giant explosions and stuff. So it's like, the more we educate the audience, I guess, yes, it takes a little bit of the magic away, but at the same time, it also enhances their appreciation for how much of a symphony of efforts all of this takes. Like, everybody's putting in such enormous science and craft and art and passion into making cool stories that look realistic as can be, you know? So
I have a story about Avatar, and Jim Cameron was the director, and he had motion capture every which way you could think of, and they filmed for like a year and done all this stuff. And he called the stunt coordinator after all the main filming was done, and he said, I need some people for mocap. We're going to do this one scene. And the coordinator said, don't you have every movement, every expression, everything you could possibly think of in the computer now? And Jim said, I want the human performance. So that says a lot.
Mm-hmm. There are a lot of folks in the chat who are asking some version of this same question, which is essentially any advice for people who are just starting out, particularly starting out in the midst of the pandemic?
Anybody?
How to start out. This is a tricky time right now, just because it's the pandemic. There's already such a shortage of work. But I mean, at the same time, like since you have the time, just start shooting little videos of you doing fight sequences, or if you do flips, do flips. If you know how to flip off a tree, flip off a tree. If you know how to do skateboard tricks, like this is the time to be capturing yourself, like your own little time capsule of like, this is what I did during Corona, and like start building your own skill reel. That's a tricky one for me. And start posting it. And if you're like, you know, up and coming stunt performer, like just start hashtagging your stuff so that people know that you exist. Because you'd be surprised, people are filming, you know, wherever they can with like their micro group of cast and crew. And if you happen to be in the right like locality, the right state or city, then you might just be that person that they're like, oh, hey, I DM'd you. I need you for this little project. I need you to do a skateboard and then fall on your back. Get some pads, practice, and, you know, good luck. Best of luck. I think that's one way to kind of break in during this weird, super weird pandemic that we're in. So
absolutely. And you know what? I don't like social media. However, I really feel like this is the time to use social media, just like Michelle said. Just speaking with other coordinators, they are finding a lot of talent on social media right now based off of videos that they're doing. As a matter of fact, the show Altered Carbon, the coordinator Larnell, he found one of the main doubles through a video. The Watchmen, that was just out right now with Regina King. Tom Williams, that coordinator, he found her double through a video. Now, mind you, she was already a stunt performer, but he didn't know who she was. And then someone sent him her video, and that's how she became the double. So it's all about filming yourself, getting it out there. But I do want to warn, don't make it so that you don't get a job, meaning put out good quality work. Mm-hmm. You know, don't just go out there and just throw any video together, because you'll easily not get a job that way as well. You know, so try to put out good work and try to, you know, meet with people that you can fight with or just show some camaraderie with, because we're normally always working with someone, and just really get those videos out there. I feel like that's the best thing you can do during this moment.
Yeah. The training's really important, and, you know, all kinds of training. You know, I ride a unicycle, I can wheelie a bicycle, surf, snow ski, water ski, whatever you can do that's physical. I even learned a trick rope when I was on Heaven's Gate, and I thought, I'll never use this. And like, I got home, and it was about a month or two later, I was doubling this one girl on a TV show, and the bad guys were down below, and I was up on a loft, and they wanted me to drop the rope on the bad guys. And I said, I can spin a loop. So I spun a nice big wide loop, dropped it on them, and, you know, so all these weird little things, you never know when you're going to be called on to do that. And the more skills you have, the better off you are. Because when you're the right size for somebody and you're the right look, it opens up so many more doors. They're not going to have to come in and replace you for certain things, or you're not going to lose your job to someone else. So,
and I feel like that, especially for stunt women, because on sets you'll have a lot of stunt guys and not that many stunt women. So I feel like the stunt women have to learn how to do everything, because they'll have you might have to do everything. Like you just said, you might have to ride a horse, you might have to drive a car, you might have to do a fight, you might have to do a fall, you might get set on fire. And I really think with the women, they have to be proficient in a lot of specialties, even if they're, like you're obviously a driver, but look what you've done, every type of stunt.
Yeah, but that being said, the top guys working are proficient in everything. So
Yeah.
I feel like it's not, as a woman, we need to be proficient in everything. I feel like to be a successful stunt performer, period, in general, you have to be proficient at everything. Because when I'm going and I'm working on Matrix and I see the guys over there rigging, guess who's about to go over there and help with some rigging? Me. And it's not because I'm a female, it's because I want to show that I have value. And even if I was a guy, I would be doing the same thing. So I just feel like the most successful people in this business, they learn how to create value or continuous value as they grow and as they mature in this game. You learn how to always add value to yourself, because that's the only way you're going to be able to keep working. Because there's always going to be someone coming in after you, and there's always going to be someone better than you. I mean, maybe not you, Debbie. I mean, like, you're like the best driver out there. But you know what I'm saying.
There will be someone someday. I don't know.
But we have to add value to our skill set. So we should be, as far as I'm concerned, we should be proficient in everything. I don't care if you're a guy or a girl. If you want to be the best, you need to know how to do just about everything.
Mm-hmm.
This is going to be our last question, because we're almost out of time, but I'm super interested in you taking your time and your answers, because I want to hear the stories, which is, what's your favorite stunt you've ever done, either because you're the most proud of it or because it was the most fun to do? And why don't we start with Debbie?
It's hard to say the favorite because I have lots of favorites, but Fast and Furious, where I drove the car underneath the semi-truck, and then the semi-truck hits me and I flip it. I love that. And I love the Matrix Reloaded sequence with the car and the motorcycle. And one of the most fun things I ever did was Herbie Fully Loaded. I got to drive the Herbie car.
Oh, neat.
Iconic. And I got to wheelie it down Main Street, Alhambra, with a counterweight on the back. That was fun.
Awesome.
That sounds awesome. Michelle?
It's kind of tricky for me to find like my favorite stunt, because I'm such a lucky son of a gun. I really enjoy them, so many of them. Like, I think I can talk about the ones I don't like having to play dead in cold water. That sucks, because you're just like, it's so cold. Like, it's worse than the stunts of like hitting. I had to like basically do this little fight, get smacked in the head, hit this like metal grate, and then fall to the ground. All right, cool. Like, that's the stunt. That's already some impact. But it was like staying dead in the cold water and not shaking, because you're like, you're not supposed to be alive. That was hard. But everything else I pretty much love, because I get to work with my friends. I'm doing choreography, or I'm being ratcheted into a wall. And again, it's like, I really enjoy the mindset of like, how am I going to tackle this thing today? Let's figure this out. Like, that thrills me. That lights me up. So I have so much fun on practically every stunt that I do, except for cold water. So that's my answer.
Yeah, the only reason I even passed the buck to you is because I'm in the same boat. Like
what do you pick?
I really can't pick my favorite stunt. The reason being is because some of my hardest stunts weren't necessarily my favorite. They were my favorite after I did them. The accomplishment, the applause, you did great. Yeah, that was great. But I think some of my most favorite stunts really happen when I'm around amazing people and we're actually doing the stunts together and we're having a fun time. You know what I mean? And people are getting thrown and people are getting hurt and no one cares. And we're all just in the moment and we're all just hitting the ground and dude, that was dope. And we're talking to each other as we hit the ground. And as we're laying on the ground, we got one eye open going, dog, that was the dopest, so.
Totally.
Those to me are like my favorite moments. I mean, the hard stunts are super you know, you have so many emotions when you have those hard stunts. You go through fear, then you go through not being fearful, then you go through I can do it, and you're like, then you know, so the harder stunts are a little bit more like Debbie said. You're in a zone. You're in a tunnel vision. You don't hear anyone. You don't see anyone. You're just focused. You're visualizing what you're gonna do. So those are good after, you know, or during, while you're doing them and you're killing it. Then all of a sudden it's become like the best stunt ever. But I would really say the camaraderie of my teammates and, you know, being on set for months at a time and us building the relationships and watching each other grow and get better and just have fun. Those to me are the best moments ever. You can't put a price tag on those moments.
Well, I thank you so much, ladies, for sharing about your craft, and April for making a film that highlights it so beautifully. And thank you, everyone, for tuning in and for the great questions in the chat. Stay safe and have a great rest of the day.
Bye, guys.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.